Yo, 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 and welcome to the the show podcast where we discuss TV shows every month. Here we have gathered to discuss the Amazon new effort upload from the formerly great Greg Daniels. I am one of your hosts, Jay. Today we got on the line the mad chip eater, Eric.
Milady.
We got Aaron.
Hey,
And last but not least, we got Adam.
Hello. What do you mean by formerly great Greg Daniels?
Well, I don't want to tip my hand too much, but I didn't really think the show was of good quality.
the gasp.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into our final opinions right off the bat, who wants to give the synopsis?
I'll give it a
You can.
Or did you say you wanted to?
I'll give it a whirl.
All right. Give it a whirl, girl.
So
To quote
what we
Captain
got
Raymond
here is essentially like some sort of postmodern. No, essentially what you have is we're in a future society where a lot of problems have been solved, I guess, and now death is on the chart of things to be solved. And so the way that they've solved it is to upload a copy of your consciousness to a cloud.
I think the argument is that it's not a copy of your consciousness. It's your consciousness in digital form. Like
Well,
that's
why I left it with the inflection, because I feel like it's still suspect.
I agree. Also, that's not been answered, but that's the presentation, if you will.
Right. Yeah. So the promise is that it's you living in a digital world where essentially they can create whatever you want. You can have McDonald's, you can have Burger King, you can have.
Otherwise, isn't it really just like your family has a Tamagotchi, a really expensive Tamagotchi?
Well, so I'll get to that. What the paradise actually ends up being is a pay to play / pay to live forever contract that if you're not paying, you run out of data on your consciousness for that month. And you have some options of shopping around with different clouds, but I guess one is the most prevalent called, y'all remember what this one's called? This paradise?
Something starts with an L.
I do not know off the top of my head.
I'm looking at it real quick.
Well, the specific one they were in, I think, was called Lakeside.
Lakeside, that's it.
And I can't remember the name of but there was like an overarching corporation that offered several different afterlives. And this specific one that we focused on was particularly ritzy.
Right. Well, which I mean, first off begs the question, how the hell are you supposed to pay for that after you're dead? But they did have the interesting nuance where you're not allowed to work, you're not allowed to make income.
So you had to basically have a way to pay for it, or your family had to pay for it as they went after you died, or before you died. Like, that's what I like, because remember so we have multiple players here, right? We have like what was
Yeah. So to finish the setup, you have Nathan Brown, Nora, Ingrid, and Alicia, and Luce. So Nathan is our main character here, who gets sucked up into the cloud while he is violently murdered by a self-driving car in the first episode. So for some reason,
which are very safe,
his self-driving car kills him. Now he's being rushed to the hospital, forced to make the last-minute decision: do you want to operate, or do you want to get uploaded to the cloud? If you get uploaded to the cloud, your human life is done. If we go operate, you have a chance of dying, and if you die, you can't be uploaded. So
the funny part to me is that he was lucid during all of this.
Right. Well, so this is where it gets a little suspicious, where Ingrid really forcefully kind of helps make the decision, like, no, let's upload. I'll pay for it. Don't even worry about it. It's going under my account. And so she somehow gets ownership of his consciousness as sole proprietor of the
well, she signed she's paying for it.
She's
so
paying for it.
You know, it's kind of like if you think the best way to explain the upload paradigm is think of old school cell phone contracts. She's paying for his cell phone contract, and the cell phone contract is the afterlife, right? So
Yes.
Well, right.
And I think that symbolized a lot later on in the show when he switches to a lower data plan.
yeah, and it's like 2 gigs a month, and then you're just on hold until the next month.
So while Nathan is being uploaded, he's getting acclimated to his digital life, finding out that certain things, like all of known and unknown physics, being part of the virtual world, don't always exist. You can't comb your hair. Your hair is just there.
It's an avatar.
You're an avatar, and so you have to be edited. You have to virtually change your clothes. You're not going to experience everything all at once. Hence, one of the major updates being extra flavors. So it's not a perfect resemblance to the life that you were living, but at least you're alive.
It's still like capitalism. Like, think about like how our cell phones have evolved over the last 10 years, right? Like whenever they first came out, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then now if you look back at the iPhone 1, you're like, oh God, that's shit compared to what we have now.
Well, I mean,
But real quick, I want to correct myself. It wasn't Lakeside, it was Lakeview.
Lakeview.
Right. And the corporation was called Horizon, which I kept mishearing as Verizon, and I'm not sure how intentional that was.
Extremely.
Well,
I can only imagine.
I will say this. The best friend, so Nathan's the main character. His pseudo best friend, Luke, is one of my favorite components of the whole show. Like, I loved him. He was so ridiculous.
Totally agree.
But he was in another sitcom called Sirens. Jay, I think you would like it. But he was phenomenal in that. He played like the new kid on the ambulance. But I had seen him just like a month before we watched this in that show. So it was nice to have a familiar face walking into this one because I knew no one else really.
Well, you didn't like C-list actor Tom Cruise as the main character?
Robbie Amell.
Burn.
I mean, if there's a Minority Report 2, he should cast for it.
I mean, with the exception of the customer support tech character whose name again escapes me, it felt like this show was cast Nora. There we go. Except for Nora, it felt like this show was casted for. All right, who's the most attractive actor who showed up at the audition? Guess what? You get the job.
Well, I think that's what I love about... Oh, man, I can't believe I'm saying that now. I think that's what I love about today's era of television, where you're really not guaranteed a great show anymore. You really just have to dive into it, and there's more writers, more actors to spare now, which is bizarro world in the sense of the internet really paved the way for that to happen. I mean, Amazon TV, Netflix, now you have virtually unlimited studios. Everyone's an actor, everyone's a writer. So you really get to experience a large variety of talent across the whole spectrum whenever it comes to a television show.
I'm going to push back on the whole that this wasn't a very good show. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. And the things that I thought were fantastic about it were the subtleties. Because the subtleties are what made this show more real for me. Like, for example, like the lag in the server time. Like when the guy was jumping into the water and the guy's like, oh, there's actually like 10 million people in that water right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of stuff, if you're a gamer, if you're, part of the internet generation, you are familiar with lag spikes and with buffering and things like that. Eric made reference to the hair, like, in the avatar kind of coming back, out of whack every time he combed it down. Like, I liked those types of things that made it feel like it could be a real thing in our world. The other thing I liked real fast was the fact that they didn't tell us how far we were into the future right away. It very much felt like it could be any time when we got started, and we're in upload, and we kind of get to see bits and pieces of the real world as the story unfolds. And I really appreciated that because, it upload kind of created this really shitty heaven, right? Where everything's like idealistic but not great. and
You have ads.
you have ads, you have like all these different things going on that you would see on the internet. Like it's funny. I was immediately reminded of WoW Trade Channel whenever like the guy was in the lobby like trying to sell shit, to everybody. Like try these new flavors. So
Well, I think as our IRL society, the one that we're currently in right now, that for all intents and purposes is not a simulation.
unless you're Elon Musk.
As we get closer into the quote unquote future, and our predictions 10 to 20 years ago get a little bit clearer as to what reality is going to look like, that's where these shows really get a chance to kind of pick on humanity now that we know that, hey, even coding can go wrong. And it's like, just because we make a virtual heaven, doesn't mean that version 1.0 is going to be glorious.
Mm-hmm. Well,
please do not upload me to version 1 if this thing becomes real.
Well, and this, I think we've kind of left out the overarching story. The whole story of this is Nathan is prematurely, dies because someone kills him, and we don't know exactly why they kill him, and that hasn't completely been explained. But he was involved in creating a freeware version of an afterlife, so people can kind of build their own worlds in the afterlife instead of being prevented from doing any work and having to pay to play.
Correct.
And he mysteriously dies, wakes up and uploaded, and part of his memories are damaged. And his handler / angel, Nora, who he begins to develop romantic feelings for, and she for him, starts researching what has happened to his memories. Shady figures start intervening and attempting to stop her, get her hard drive, killed Nathan, so on and so forth. And we're ultimately left with Nathan stopping having feelings for Ingrid because she kind of just sees him as arm candy or an accessory to turn on every month, and having developed feelings for his angel Nora. And I don't know about you guys, but at the end when Ingrid like shows up and she's like, I uploaded, I'm kind of in the position of thinking that she didn't really upload. This is a ploy. What do y'all think?
I think that's a thing.
I think it's a possibility. I don't think it's a probability because she's crazy enough to do some shit like that.
That's also true.
Throughout this whole show, it really holds the dichotomy of, well, this guy who's made some mistakes is held hostage by this absolutely insane person. And the more you watch, you're like, oh, she's really nuts.
There were moments where she showed some humanity, like the whole interaction with the niece. Like,
in my opinion, that only further strengthened how crazy she was.
Well,
it's not all the time. It's just like you don't know when it's going to happen.
Well, I don't know. Back me up on this, somebody. But I think that there's a little bit of humanity that bleeds through in the sequence with the niece. I actually thought there was a redemption arc starting there, like whenever that scene was going down. Because, her kicking her own family out and siding with the niece and defending Nathan. Like,
well, she could just be the rich ditzy girl who's been out of touch with everything, and now she's kind of having like slow doses of reality, and she's like, oh wait, it's not all about me. Maybe that, like, I kind of agree that could have, if there was a redeeming story arc, that would have been when it started.
Well, she was definitely selfish and definitely spoiled, but
sure.
I felt like she genuinely loved Nathan.
Yeah, I felt like there was some. She went back and put the car on, prioritize passenger.
Well, pause. Nathan created some sort of free version of the Afterlife Cloud, and
he was working on it with his partner.
Isn't Ingrid's dad involved in the self-driving cars, or?
I think he's involved in Horizon. That's why they have unlimited data.
So somehow his girlfriend, his living girlfriend, that at the end of the series may or may not have actually uploaded, his living girlfriend Ingrid, who's paying for everything, is the daughter of someone in power at Horizon who may or may not have had an involvement in Nathan's death, which then brings Ingrid into suspicion of involvement to his death as well, right? Or she?
Well, I don't think
she's a
she was involved. I
suspect
think
of why
she
he's there
knows
in the first
more.
place.
I think she knows more than we've been told. Like, I think that was the whole point. Is she made a reference to "I know what you did," and he kind of like popped off at her, but then nothing was ever revealed. So I think
His
that
memories are deleted. So I kind of feel like
he got his
she
memories
has a
back.
Tamagotchi
Yeah, he
boyfriend.
got his memories back.
He got his memories back. Remember, he was the dick. He was trying to sell it to her dad under the table, out from underneath his friend, and his friend was trying to not sell it to the big company, and do a startup and actually create it as a freeware for people. So I think that we don't know why he was killed, unless he changed his mind, and we don't know that yet, and didn't give the code.
Or maybe his friend actually killed him or something.
Yeah, we don't know who killed him yet.
Like that.
But what's your face? Ingrid definitely made reference to the father doing something more, having something more involved with Nathan's demise.
So yeah, I think she's playing like puppet boyfriend. Let me have a digital boyfriend forever that I can just call and talk to whenever I want. I think that's the role that she's in, because I don't think they've played her off to be very intelligent. So,
But
whatever
in coming to season 2, it's not, that won't be the case anymore.
If she did upload,
If she did upload.
I think it comes down to that. If she didn't upload, I agree. Then she's the Ditzy. This is a pet, a Tamagotchi boyfriend. If she did upload,
she's full psycho.
She might be full psycho, but she also may have genuine feelings for Nathan and blah blah blah. So
I will not advocate that she has a heart.
Well,
I can't get a boyfriend, so I'll just hold this one hostage.
Quality.
Say that again.
She's like, I can't get a boyfriend, so I'll just hold this one hostage.
I don't know. She got a handy from, or she gave a handy to his friend. So
that was kind of fucked up, like learning that. But it also
come on, you're gonna dodge your friend over that.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah, especially once he's dead.
Ingrid gave after what's his name, Nathan died. Ingrid gave the partner a hand job, some shit. So.
Well, speaking of hand jobs, one thing that I did like or did resonate with me about this show was how they incorporated 5-star rating systems.
Yeah.
Where there was the subplot with Nora about she couldn't get the family discount for her father unless her rating was at a certain point, and one bad rating from a customer could ruin it. Or even the hookup app, where it was the same kind of situation where you got rated on your sexual ability. That 100% feels like, in a lot of ways, that's where we're headed.
It's really creepy because, like, in China, they have like the government mandated social media program where you're kind of rated on how good of a citizen you are.
Right.
We have the same thing. It's just it's more sneaky. It's through
it's called
well, it's Yelp. It's all these different rating systems like Jay's saying. Like it's being able to rate people on Tinder and shit like that. Like that's where we're headed.
That's why I really appreciate services that just have the thumbs up or thumbs down. It's like you either like it or you didn't like it. I don't need to know specifics, because once you get into specifics, then you're like, oh, well, if you're not 5 stars, you're obviously the worst. And that to me is just wrong.
If you display what the ratio is, then people start making a deal about, well, I'm 70% liked, I'm 80% liked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to get on my #MeToo soapbox for just one moment, one thing that really, really pissed me off was the scene near the beginning where Nora is about to have sex with her hookup, and the two of them each look into each other's camera and says, "I consent to this." Yeah. That really pissed me off, because consent is something that has to be continuous and can be withdrawn at any time.
Yep.
And that feels like it just cuts completely against that.
Such a feminist.
Well, I
chick.
mean, maybe they did have to do it every time, and it was only for that one session.
Well,
but
they're not
I guess
allowed to say each other's name during sex. They have to say, "I consent" continually.
I consent.
I consent.
It could. Did they didn't have the cameras on the second time. I remember making a note of that. But the first time, did they wear the cameras the whole time? Like, is that how they can tell it's continually consensual? As
I
no
don't
one
know.
says
That's
no?
weird. That's
I
weird.
suppose that's a good point. Where if you have the camera on the whole time, you'll have that proof.
Body
of
cams is
Body
body
cams say
cams
stop.
monitored by AI to make sure that your sexual activities aren't too aggressive.
Or non-consensual.
Or non-consensual? Yeah.
But another
We
part
are
of the
here to
show,
make sure that your consensual sex is consensual.
but another part of the show that really resonated with me was the storyline about Nora's father, where she and eventually Nathan are trying to convince him to upload rather than die. And his response is just constantly, my wife is dead and I'm a religious person who believes in a religious afterlife. And I think my wife is in that afterlife. And as long as there's any chance in the world that she's there, that's where I want to go too. And that's 100% what I feel like I could 100% see myself having that same kind of conflict with my own parents in 15 years.
I mean, it's the truth. It's
Yeah.
really what our society is. So that's going to be, as long as we have people, we're going to have religion. Like, that's just, I think that those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think what's kind of sad about that is her unwillingness to see his wants in it. So it kind of goes both ways in that sense of like, she wants him to be around for her. And that's kind of like, well, I mean, what's the point of him being alive? Is it for you? And it's good that he tried. I mean, he tried it. He put on the suit. He got freaked out. Then I think he tried it again successfully. Or maybe that was the same day.
It was the same day, and I think that was whenever they also had the glitch, and they all looked like Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
But I liked that they didn't belittle his beliefs or make any effort to make him seem irrational
It
in the
didn't seem
face of this
political. Yeah,
technology.
yeah. It didn't seem like a politically set
They
up.
didn't even choose a religion. They're like, I believe in, a heaven.
I think they handled that well. I didn't notice that, but I think they handled that well.
Because it felt like there were shows within this show that I liked. And another one of those shows was the interaction between Nathan and Luke and then the little kid, especially the episode where they went to the black market.
Yeah, the black market was funny. The kid getting the puberty upgrade, that was pretty hilarious.
Because that very much felt like, like downloading music off a LimeWire and getting a virus with it. Like, you never quite get what you think you're going to get when you go to those illegal means.
And that's what I mean by subtleties. Those are the things that I thought I really appreciated about the show, were the little things that mirrored our world and brought the realities of the internet age into Upload. Like, that's what I thought they did a really good job at. I agree with you. They did cast pretty much just, the beautiful people. But I thought that they did some things well in the show.
Shout out to Nora. Call me.
Nora reminded me of an actor from Rooster Teeth, actually, called Fiona. And like throughout the entire show, it's just like I can't not see the resemblance. It's kind of crazy. But
Let's take a look. Fiona Rooster Teeth.
Fiona, Fiona.
Fiona.
I was like, are they related? Are they sisters? It's kind of nuts.
Well, I can't believe we're not talking about Adam's debut in the show.
Oh, are
Yeah,
you talking about Owen Daniels, the AI guy?
Yeah.
I definitely thought that he looked familiar.
Well, come on. Like in 2020, where like everything racy is borderline too much. How are you going to make the gingers have no souls joke? I mean,
Indirectly.
they did. No, they did. It wasn't even indirectly. Like, oh,
Yeah.
they have
But
no
he's an
souls.
AI. He was an AI.
Well, they legitimately said he has no soul.
You're not wrong, but it wasn't because he was a ginger. It was because he was an AI.
Right, but he
Exactly.
also happened to be ginger.
I didn't even pick up on the gingers have no souls reference.
I
So-
was jaw dropped. I was like, what? I mean, that's funny as hell, but what?
Again, ginger's not a protected class. I'm pretty sure. Jay, back me up on this one.
That is true.
Minority nonetheless. I got your back, Adam.
I'm not
Adam's not
ginger.
a ginger.
Adam,
I'm
you
like
have
the
been oppressed
epitome
half
of
your life.
Hitler Youth.
What?
Blonde hair, blue-eyed, tall, German.
What'd you say?
He said he's the epitome of Hitler Youth.
Maybe that could be misconstrued in 20 years. Who knows? But
He is construed right now.
I'd like to clarify, I'm not racist.
I'm not racist, but
We're just talking physically
that was
and
our
genetics.
show. Thanks for
Yeah,
listening. Our
physically-
series will be
physically-
renamed next episode.
Oh gosh! So you're just saying that you have the Aryan skull and features, but you're not a part of the political regime. Okay.
Yes. Let's go with that. Thank you
I
for
may resemble a Nazi, but I'm
giving
not.
me the words.
Did not see that coming.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
Now, another part of the show that I disliked was that they recycled some jokes from previous Greg Daniels shows. And the one that really got me was, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but they kept referencing corporations that had merged, like current corporations that are not together, that in this future were joined.
And they were
And that
like weird combos.
Yeah, and that is a joke straight from the last season of Parks and Recreation, another Greg Daniels created show, where they were making the jokes about Chipotle, Verizon, Exxon. And it's
Yeah.
just like, come on, Greg, you already used that one. And it was a, oh, haha joke then.
I liked it.
I think that's a really.
I mean, but at the same time, didn't Mike Judge do that, like in Idiocracy or whatever? Like, wasn't that the whole thing? It was a bunch of like, or all the corporations flipped. That's where it was in Idiocracy. Starbucks was like now a strip club.
Right, and Fuddruckers was buttfuckers, which
Yeah.
that still makes me laugh.
That's pretty funny. We've all done that once.
What?
What?
I'm just.
I mean, it's 2020, Adam. Like, live your bliss and
No,
Jesus.
I meant saying the name wrong.
Everything
But
everything.
I
but
like-
sex. I get it.
I'm just gonna leave it there. I think it's funnier that way.
It's 2 for 2.
Well, I think it's interesting. I guess I didn't notice the creator, but yeah, he has The Office behind him, Parks and Rec, King of the Hill, and then Upload. It really is.
He was on King of the Hill?
He did. Yeah, he's part of the. He wrote on King of the Hill. It doesn't
I did
say
not
how
know
much.
that. That's why he's friends with Mike Judge. That explains everything. Did
Yep.
not know.
I mean, he had a lot of influence in Saturday Night Live, 51 episodes.
I think that's. See, I would see that less of like a joke, unless they use the exact same name, and more of like a critique of our merging
like
corporate
that's his
society.
style already. Maybe he had the same observation twice.
Well, I think it's just the continued observation. It's another place to put it. But I mean, fair enough. He did use that style before. I do remember that.
Yeah, I think you're right that, 100% that's where we're headed, that we're going to see consolidation of corporations that
Well,
aren't necessarily expected.
Can I ask? Can anyone else explain this one
Well,
to me?
isn't that
Why-
getting into monopoly territory though?
Well, but
You start doing that?
Can
We're
you
kind of
explain
off
to
subject.
me why Hasbro owns Death Row Records now? Because isn't that what Greg Daniels is kind of pointing out here?
Because they're an entertainment company.
But they're a toy company, and they now own
Oh,
Death Row
oh.
Records.
They've produced a lot of toys, but they're an entertainment company, Hasbro Entertainment. So
I just think that that's funny that the people who make Barbie also make,
Well, would it be less
That's
weird
Gen
if
6.
they came up with a pseudonym, kept Hasbro as a parent company and just created another one?
No, it's not even that. It's just that it's like Disney owning all of our childhood,
Well, that's what's happening.
or Hasbro owning Death Row Records and Barbie. I just think that that's an unusual conglomeration of entities, and that's what I feel Greg Daniels
And-
is kind of making
and
fun
you don't
of.
think Amazon is weird?
No, well, I mean, the Google and Amazon, they're not the same in that regard. They just do a little of everything. Like they just
Isn't that
It's
the
very left field
qualifiers to
for
be a
Hasbro to
monopoly?
go music.
Hasbro bought something. Yeah, it's out of the nowhere. They weren't in the music industry before this. They just bought a record label. So that's the reason why I think that's unusual, and that's different than like Google investing in self-driving cars, investing in augmented reality, investing in whatever. That's
kind of
a
lot
different
like
situation.
Google buying a thermostat company.
Yeah, it would be like Google buying like an entire like security home camera system company, and releasing it as their own.
It's a
I
little
could
bit
see
like
Google
Amazon
doing
buying
that,
Whole
though.
Foods.
Yes, like Amazon buying
And-
Whole Foods. That I would agree with.
Yeah, that was a left field one.
It's a little ironic that this is an Amazon show, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
Well, that kind of makes it good that at least Amazon's not like keeping tabs like that. That would be a little bit more suspect.
That you know of.
No, they are.
Well, that's true. Writers and actors speak out. If Amazon, HBO, or anyone is holding you down, come to us and we will put you on the show and get you freedom.
We can't do anything to help you. He's lying.
We will be
We
your
are here to help.
whistleblower.
Now we'll help you do the whistleblowing. I ain't gonna whistleblow for nobody else.
So we'll be the whistle. You just blow us.
You just blow us. Blow us and we'll whistle.
I see what you did there.
Well, Aaron, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what this show had to say about inequality. Because it felt like that was very much an overarching theme that a little bit I felt hit over the head with.
No, absolutely. I mean, the whole have and have nots, the 2 gigs and the people with the unlimited data. I mean, I think this is the thing that I took away from it is who do you see the whole time? Who was visible? It was the people with the unlimited data, with at least the upper middle class, the middle class, those kind of people, and then anyone else who was lucky enough to get an upload but only get the 2 gigs, you were out of sight, out of mind, down below, so that you didn't depress the other people.
Essentially in another dimension.
So, I mean, if you're looking at that as a metaphor for our society, I think that that's kind of pointing to the fact that since the 80s, we've had the largest growth in inequality between the upper class and the lower class out of like the entire history of the United States, even the robber baron era of capitalism. So we're definitely approaching these levels of extreme inequality. And I mean, we get reports every year about how like 80 people own 80% of the wealth on the planet. So, I think that we're all acclimated to it, so it doesn't really matter to us anymore. It's kind of like, whenever Assange came out and was like, oh, or Snowden was like, hey, they're looking at all your internet stuff, and everyone was like, we know, who gives a shit? So I feel like in a certain way,
I posted it all on there anyway.
TV, these things give us an opportunity to remember and realize what's going on. So to me, I agree with the critique. I feel like inequality in our society is rampant and getting worse. And I think that COVID is only going to make that even more extreme.
Define inequality real quick.
What?
Like inequality between classes.
So
or
if
race?
you look, it's not race. It's straight up class. It's straight up the wealthiest people, the 1% of the world versus everyone else. Jay, you vamp for a second. Let me pull up a stat.
Sure. One way I felt like that theme fell a little flat here was the David Choke character, because it was just so obviously and so transparently David Koch, and it's like, oh, real clever, Greg. Like,
I
you really
actually
veiled
looked it
that
up.
criticism
I
from
actually
me.
looked it up. I thought they used his real name. I was like, did they really?
Yeah, so that just it felt kind of flat for me, where it was like it feels like you could have, and I agree with Aaron that there was a lot of subtleties in this show that worked and were enjoyable, but that one was just the
That was pretty
opposite of
blatant.
subtlety.
That was I agree with that. That was pretty blatant. So, for example, 26 people own as much wealth as 50% of the poorest people in the world. Okay, so like that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing. And since the beginning of COVID, we've had 138 new billionaires join the ranks. So there's only so much money in the system when it's
But they
hoarded.
creep up.
Yeah, and it creeps up. That's the reality. It's definitely a trickle up system that we have here. So all the money that was stimulated into the economy is slowly going to float up to the top into Bezos' hands ultimately. So I mean, to me, the critique is valid. I agree with you that the Koch brother. What was his name? I just can. My ears only heard Koch, but I also am like
David Choke.
Choke. So I don't
Because he
know.
hoped he chokes on coke.
He died recently, right? One of the Koch brothers died within the last 2-3 years.
Right, it was David.
David. So David choked. But at the same time, that character came off the way I would expect David Koch to come off.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know.
Women golden eggs.
Isn't it just satire at that point?
Sure, and
Well,
I
he's
think
very generous in the show.
I think that whole theme to it was really accurate to its near future setting, because I don't think we're going to solve this problem in 13 years. And I think we are probably going to get some form of this upload within that frame of time. And 100% they are going to cater very differently to the Cokes of the world rather than to the 2GIGs of the world.
For sure. I mean, I think that one of the great warnings to our society, like if all the Greek tragedies and plays were a warning of hubris, the warning to our society was clearly Elysium, and I feel like it that's where we're headed. We're headed for the society where there is a built-up, place for those who have, and then the rest of us are fighting
Like
for
Hunger
scraps at the
Games?
bottom. Not even like Hunger Games, like whole another planet, build a satellite, and all the rich people become aliens up there.
Well,
Like-
I think that brings up a very interesting topic of just which will be our demise, and it's kind of like
Climate.
Primates, yeah.
No, climate.
Oh, primates, yeah.
Climate primates.
Rise of the monkeys.
Evolution finally caught up. Top of the food chain's been lazy.
The state and the market have failed us when it comes to climate, and we don't have an alternate solution to that right now. So until we address climate substantially as a society, that will be our demise.
Well,
Like
thankfully,
that's
COVID took care of that for a little bit.
it didn't, because like that's the data is like, yeah, all the cars stopped moving, but the factories in China are back running at full steam. So that's where the real serious damage, in my opinion, comes from, is the industry. Cars don't help. I mean, global car exhaust is definitely a problem. But industry, hard, heavy industry, that is really, really bad for the atmosphere. And that's running full steam in China right now.
Well, I mean, right now as opposed to any other time, what was interesting was they did have photos of China during COVID, and it was very, very cleared up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it just goes to show you how fast the environment heals itself if you let it.
So, what was what's the show with the Beltas?
Oh,
The Expanse.
The Expanse.
The
So
Expanse.
damn good.
I think that's another very probable outcome. Is now you have these two competing societies, super societies, one in its infancy and one in its legacy or whatever, and now you have this super underclass living on the belt, trying to mine everything. So there really are a number of ways that, I mean, we can destroy ourselves and create the underclass of the future. I think as far as like an upload That is. I feel like that is very probable. Let's just mimic our brainwaves, and hey, that's you. I think what's also more likely is that you're going to have to accept that that's not actually you. You can't transfer. Maybe it's an exact copy. Maybe they do a very good job at like mimicking your neurons and the way they fire, but it's not going to be your energy. It's going to be some windmill that spun 2,000 miles off, put enough electrons into a cable that became you. And I mean, it's never going to be you. I mean, that's kind of. I think the only way that you're going to be able to have infinite life like that is if you preserve the brain. Otherwise, anything outside of the brain is just a copy.
I guess it comes back to it if they when they digitize it, what if it wasn't a copy? What if it was in fact the data on your mind, on your memory, on your brain, taken into a digital form? And I guess we're getting philosophical here. What are you? What is the self? I mean, this is
Well, that's why they
a
have to
much
kill
deeper
you in the
question.
upload. That's
Yeah,
why
I
they
know,
have to
but
kill you.
your brain goes away. There is no more brain, and the data is taken from that. So, are you the sum of all the data on your experiences in your mind, or are you something separate and apart from that? Because
Well, okay.
let me finish. If you're a materialist, that you are the being, the brain, the self, then in theory the data should be transferable. If you believe, if you're like a you know. The person believes in the soul, then it doesn't matter if you copy the data off of the brain. The soul is what makes you you, and that couldn't be copied over. So I guess that would be kind of the philosophical question that upload raises: is do you have a soul, or are you just the material data on your mind, in your brain?
Well, I think if you really go down that rabbit hole and you are able to copy that data, then I think the next step, let's say you're not doing it at your death, you're doing it like as an insurance program, and like you're doing it 10 years before you die or whatever. Now you're talking to yourself in the digital mirror, and then like as you're dying or whatever else, you are your own best friend. And then it's like, oh man, my day's come, I'm going to die, I don't know what happens, I don't know what happens, oh my god. And then that version of you is going to have an interesting time convincing you that it's actually you. Like, I'm here, I am you, I feel everything, I think everything, I remember everything, I experience new things. I'm going to remember this time with
Well, okay, I guess let me ask you this question. So
like,
you're
let go of
if
real life, it's
let,
okay, I'm in here.
let me ask you this. Okay, so I'm gonna propose a hypothetical. Okay, and you tell me if uh, you have this new technology, you can lay down in this bed, and what it does, it scans your consciousness and it sends it via satellite to another planet where there's another bed, and it creates a clone copy of you. You get out and you have control over this body. You see through its eyes. You are in control of its brain. You walk around. You have all of your experiences, and when you're done, you go lay down back in the bed. It kills the clone. All of your memories are then taken from the clone and uploaded back into your mind, and you get up and stand out of the bed. What happened there? Did you in fact experience that? Did the clone go experience something, and then you then were implanted with the memory? Like, what happened there? You see what I'm saying? Like, what are you? Who are you? What makes you
Well, the
you?
moment you decide to take that other experience on as yourself, it now becomes you. So I think there's a little bit of Schrodinger's cat going on there.
Jay, anyone else? Adam, Jay, do y'all have a thought on this? Like, what are you? Are you just your memories, your experiences, the meaty data, or I mean, is there? Because isn't that what the religious people's objection is? Is that there's a soul,
Well,
that's something different than just the data of your memories and experiences?
I think that's the big question: is there a soul or not? And I mean, I hate to take the cop out here, but I just don't know.
Yeah. I'm kind of siding with Jay on this one. I mean, I think, at first sight, it does look like you were just the culmination of all your experiences, your memories, um, all of that. But we don't know if there is something else some X element to the human body, because it's still, a lot of the human body is still a mystery.
I think I wouldn't be comfortable with the procedure until they're scanning every cell of my body. Such as, I mean, first off, I think that there are insurmountable variables that you will never be able to calculate into a computer, even with quantum computing. And I realize the gravity of that statement. I think until you scan my pinky toe for intelligence, I'm not confident that you've done at least the minimal diligence to make sure that that copy has my soul. Like, what if my soul?
So are you a panpsychist, Eric, where you believe that all matter in the universe has consciousness?
Not all matter has consciousness, but what is consciousness? Just in the sense of like synapses firing, they've proven that your gut and your heart have neurons that fire. And so you have communication going on throughout your body. And so
to call back Chernobyl, I'd really like to think that I am more than just a biological robot, but on the other hand, I'm not sure there's really evidence to say that I'm not.
It's the great debate between the materialist and the dualist. Descartes, I think, therefore I am.
Well, I think it's about time to get some ratings in on this show.
Yeah.
So for our new listeners, if there are any, on this show, we at the end will give our opinions of this show's quality on a 0 to 10 scale. And I think today we shall start with Mr. Eric. What did you think of Upload?
I think from concept to execution, with execution being its weak point, and that's not a bad thing. I think just with these very odd off shows that I did not realize was a Greg Daniels show, so I'm kind of surprised that I saw some of the production quirks that I saw, such as her VR suit was just a scuba suit. I would have thought that was a little bit more forgivable until I found out that Greg Daniels was involved. So I'm kind of.
I thought that was intentional. Like I thought that was, remember, because they said it's going to get wet, so and it was hooked up to a hose in the what's it called, in the tub.
Well, they just reused some very familiar technology. Like she put on like the Samsung Gear headset, and then that was like a thing. Just certain things like that where I was like, that prop is low budget.
Well, don't watch Star Trek. There's a lot of that shit going on.
Man, that's tough. So I think honestly that was the show's worst trait for me. It was just, I don't want to say it's low budgetness, but that's what I'm going to say. But from a concept to execution to acting to like what Aaron said, the subtleties, I'm going to give it, drum roll, I'm going to give it a 6.4. Can I do that?
All right, 6.4 from Eric. You can do whatever you want.
Aaron gave Cowboy Bebop 6.54321, so I think you can give it a 6.4.
All right, 6.42. That's what I'm going to do. 42 for the end of the universe and their attempt to recreate it.
All right, 6.42 from Eric. Next up, we got Adam.
What to say about this show? I didn't really struggle to watch it. Each episode, I think, was paced well, but by the time I got to the end of it, I wasn't that interested in the season 2. And I don't know if it's because of the content in the show. I don't know if it's because I didn't really have a problem with the acting. I was going to say, I don't know if it's because of the acting, but I honestly, most of the acting was on point for me. I mean, it wasn't like a grand slam, but, you know, it was good enough to be in an HBO show or an Amazon show. So I didn't really have a problem with that. Some of the jokes were a little lowbrow, but, you know, I don't know what else. I couldn't write some of the jokes that they made in the show, so I can't really critique that fairly. I guess overall, just because I wasn't interested in seeing any more of it. Probably give it a 6.5. Yeah, that seems good to me.
Can you really put Amazon and HBO in the same thing?
It's
I
definitely
can.
premium television. They're both premium television.
Both
I would say that.
Amazon is premium. It comes with your Prime subscription.
But Prime literally is like a reference to a premium kind of idea. So it's I don't know what else to say.
I get socks the next day with the same service that provides.
I would call Netflix, Hulu, HBO. I would all consider them premium television now.
I would consider Amazon the network you go to.
I would also say that premium is a spectrum.
Okay, well then you just lost premium then.
No, I definitely think that there's like Showtime is premium. It's not as good as HBO. Same with Netflix. Like I think HBO is just a better.
What's the introduction? ABC.
I wouldn't say Comedy Central is premium.
Or Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney.
Disney.
Although
maybe.
Disney Plus has got.
Yeah, it's getting there.
It's getting there.
What are you talking about? They do original content. They
do original content, yeah, but so do other shows. It wasn't until AMC started doing like Breaking Bad that they would be considered premium content. Like I think that there's a quality of show that they start putting out, and not all channels hit that premium level. That's what I'm saying. Is I think that there are, sitcoms. Sitcoms are not premium television. Upload is kind of that one of those shows like HBO and Amazon cutting into the sitcom era, but it's like the higher end. But like if you go watch like I don't know Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Seinfeld or Frasier, those are not the same as I don't know Upload or what was the one that we watched on HBO Avenue 5?
Mm-hmm.
Like those were premium level sitcoms. They I don't know, had a little bit more intellectual haha too.
I wouldn't say Avenue 5 was premium, but
I would. I
I'll
definitely
leave
thought
that
it was.
alone.
Jay, Aaron, what are your ratings?
I would definitely say that I enjoyed the show thoroughly. I couldn't stop watching it. We burned through it in like a few days. I would probably give it about a 7.5 because I agree there was definitely some areas where I felt like they took the easy out. But they also did a lot of stuff that made me feel a little bit more immersed into the world in a way that it didn't feel like, here, future, this is the world. Just the slow reveal, the little subtleties that made me feel like, they were writing from the same level of frustration with technology that we all have. Those are the things that I really appreciate about it. So I give it 7.5.
All right, 7.5 from Aaron. That just leaves me. This show, I guess it's something I said already. Excuse me, but there were shows within this show that I liked, but overall, it didn't really work for me. And from the theme of the inequality, where I felt simultaneously hit over the head with it, but it also never really felt like it came to any conclusion or thesis statement about what it was really trying to say or tell me. It just never felt like it got there. I thought that the acting performances for the most part fell flat. There were some jokes that made me laugh, but most of it I just didn't really think was all that funny. So overall, I'm gonna say this is a 4 show for me. And while it has been picked up for another season, about the only thing that'll get me to watch it is if we review it on this show.
Very well.
So what does that leave us with average rating wise?
All right, with a 4 from me, that leaves us with an average score of 6.105.
Damn it, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So amongst the master rating, that will put Upload pretty much at the top of the bottom quarter, above Plebs, The Orville, and Mixology, and right below Cowboy Bebop.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, we have already rolled the dice for next month, and we will be reviewing the actual Prestige television miniseries Band of Brothers. And I am pretty excited
Prestige?
about
Do you mean
this.
premium?
I chose to use a different word
Premium
because
is
I
on
think
spectrum, so let's be careful.
That
yeah,
seems like
I
a
think
prime
your
answer.
guys' discussion of
Prestigious?
premium was extremely subjective. You know, which networks do you trust to turn out the best TV? I think we all have different opinions on what the
Well,
quality of each source is.
I think
some
it has a
guys
lot
who
to
are
do with
paid to
funding, though.
review Hollywood said that this one's really good. So
Premium to me, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be. You're right. It shouldn't be a quality thing. It's actually probably anything that couldn't be played on cable, like all the stuff that Netflix, HBO, Stars. That's how I've always seen premium. Is the stuff that gets to say the F word, gets to have nudity. That's I guess the real definition of premium. Whether it's good or not, that's subjective because there's a whole lot of shit Stars content. No offense, that you know.
Oh, you meant offense.
No, I'm just saying. Like, there's been there's one show on Stars that I think of Stars. The Ash versus the Evil Dead is absolutely phenomenal. But Sam Raimi also actually did the whole series, whereas some of the other ones like Blackheart or was it Spartacus? I think the blood on that looked like it was done in After Effects. So
Probably was.
it probably was. So there's definitely what I was trying to say is there's levels of premium. You know, like there's HBO Game of Thrones and there's Spartacus on Stars.
well, I
They're
guess
both
you could kinda
premium,
line it up
but
with
there's
the budget.
definitely a
You could-
quality level.
You could line that up with the budget, don't you think?
I agree. I definitely think that the budget for Game of Thrones is probably 400 times larger than Spartacus. But they did get Lucy Lawless. So that was probably
Lucy
what
Flawless.
the budget went to.
Well, thank you for joining us today for the show's review of Upload. Tune in next month for our thoughts on the 2001 miniseries Band of Brothers.
Adios.
Adios.
Chirp, chirp.